When a woman starts waking up from that ancient spell that has tied her to the idea of marriage, she steps onto a threshold that feels both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. And this awakening, it's not a rebellion against love, and it's not a rejection of partnership. It's simply the first quiet tremor of consciousness whispering, "You were not born to belong to another. You were born to belong to your own soul." For thousands of years, the feminine psyche has been woven into the archetype of the bride, the one who waits, who longs to be chosen, who measures her worth through the eyes of someone else. But underneath that soft, romantic image lies a grief most women never name. The grief of a spirit that has mistaken captivity for connection. Because marriage, in its sacred origin, was never meant to imprison anyone. It was a symbol, a ritual reenactment of the alchemical marriage between the masculine and feminine forces inside the psyche. The sacred conjunctio, the inner union that gives birth to wholeness. But over time, symbols decayed. Rituals became rules, mystery turned into mechanism. What was once a living metaphor for inner harmony eventually became an external contract. And slowly, the woman who grew up dreaming of her wedding day as the ultimate destination of her life forgot that her real altar was always within herself. Without noticing, she started serving a god made of fear. The god of approval, the god of fitting in, the god of belonging no matter the cost. The first veil of illusion begins to fall when she finally realizes marrying before she has met her own soul means entering the temple as a stranger. She may love deeply, passionately, even fiercely, but she loves through projection, not presence. The man becomes a mirror, reflecting the image of her inner masculine, her animus. And as long as she mistakes that mirror for the man himself, she remains bound by subtle magic. Because she doesn't love him, she loves what awakens inside her when he is near. And when he withdraws, she collapses. Not because he took something from her, but because she believed her light came from him. She forgot that the light she saw reflected in his eyes was always her own. I've seen women in dreams standing before a mirror that turns slowly into mist. They reach out to touch the reflection of a man, but their hands pass right through, and behind the dissolving mist they see their own face, older, wiser, glowing in solitude. That moment of sacred fear is the soul whispering, "I am not here to be completed, I am here to become whole." The unconscious doesn't care about society's rules. It doesn't ask, "Should you marry?" It only asks, "Is the union alive? Does this relationship nourish your soul?" A marriage that becomes lifeless, that suffocates imagination, becomes a psychological coffin. But solitude, true solitude, can become a garden where the soul finally breathes again. And this is where the forbidden truth appears, the one society cannot bear. Because a woman who marries her own soul, who knows her value from within, becomes impossible to control. There is a mystery in the feminine spirit that no vow, no ring, no role can contain. She is like the moon, ever-changing yet eternal. The world's version of marriage demands consistency of form, but the soul demands consistency of growth. One is a ring of gold, the other is a spiral of light. When a woman binds herself to the first without honoring the second, the spiral freezes. She becomes what some call the petrified anima, the woman who performs all the right gestures, all the expected roles, but whose eyes no longer shine. Her laughter becomes polite. Her desire becomes duty, and deep in her dreams a younger version of herself still runs barefoot through open fields calling her home. In dream work, I often encounter the archetype of the lost bride, a woman standing at an altar of stone, holding flowers that never wither, yet her face is blank. She's waiting for a groom who will never come. Because the groom was never meant to be a man. The groom is the forgotten part of her own psyche, the part she abandoned to be loved. When she finally drops the bouquet, when she walks away from the altar, the whole temple collapses into light. And that moment marks the beginning of individuation, the marriage of the soul with itself. To say a woman should never get married is not a condemnation of love. It is a warning. Do not confuse love with captivity, because real love cannot survive in a cage. Real love breathes only in freedom. The modern woman carries two inherited archetypes inside her, the submissive bride and the angry rebel. One wants to be chosen, the other rejects every bond, yet neither is complete. Between them stands the true feminine, she who neither kneels nor runs but stands in radiant solitude, capable of partnership yet not defined by it. People often ask, but isn't companionship a human need? Isn't partnership natural? Of course it is, but so is the ocean's relationship with the moon. True union is gravitational, not contractual. Two individuated souls, whole on their own, orbit each other without eclipse. Such love cannot be legislated, it cannot be promised, it simply is. But most marriages aren't born from wholeness. They are born from hunger. Two incomplete selves trying to fill each other's emptiness, and then calling the arrangement stability. When a woman marries out of fear of loneliness, she isn't wedding a man, she is wedding her own shadow. Because loneliness is not the absence of company, it is the absence of connection with oneself. The unlived life inside her, the mystic, the creator, the wanderer, begins to haunt her marriage like a ghost. The more she tries to quiet that ghost with comfort, the louder it cries in her dreams. I've met women who woke up at 40 and felt like they had been asleep since their wedding day. The house, the children, the routines, beautiful, meaningful, but also symbols of safety that hid a deeper question. Whose life am I living? There's a dream motif that repeats across cultures. A woman stands at her own wedding, but the groom's face keeps changing, from her father to a stranger to a faceless shadow. Every shifting face is a projection of her unintegrated animus. The dream ends only when she removes the veil and sees herself clearly for the first time. The ceremony isn't canceled, it's transformed. And this is the truth society fears. Women who awaken cannot be controlled through old archetypes. The bride, the wife, the mother, these roles were masks created to domesticate the feminine mystery. But when a woman withdraws her energy from those masks, she becomes unpredictable, radiant, guided by her own inner law. She stops functioning as an extension of the masculine world and becomes an oracle of the self, and the collective mind finds that terrifying. I once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And for many women, stepping into that truth requires a kind of disobedience, not against men, but against the false gods living inside their own psyche. She has to unlearn the belief that love requires the sacrifice of her soul. She has to rediscover Eros not as servitude or longing, but as divine curiosity. And when she does, the world won't know how to react. People may call her selfish, cold, intimidating, or too independent, because her energy no longer feeds the collective illusion. But in truth, she has finally become what she was meant to be, the living image of the anima mundi, the awakened feminine soul moving through flesh. Every transformation begins with a breakdown. It's a universal law of the psyche. And when a woman starts to question the myth of marriage, when she begins to pull at the threads of the story she was raised to believe, it feels like the whole fabric of her life starts to unravel. The dream she carried for decades dissolves. The future she imagined loses its shape, and the collapse feels like death, because it is. It is the death of the persona, the death of the good woman mask she learned to wear for survival. But behind that death waits a resurrection. I've seen it in the eyes of women who have walked through the dark night of self-betrayal and come out the other side blazing with independence. They no longer ask for permission to exist. They no longer bend themselves into shapes to be loved. They stand in a presence that is steady, grounded, luminous. Their solitude isn't emptiness, it's a womb of creation. Because the sacred feminine, when freed from imitation and expectation, becomes a vessel for the unconscious itself. She dreams not only for her own life, but for humanity. She becomes an antenna for intuition, a channel for symbols, a mirror reflecting truths that society refuses to see. And the biggest truth our collective refuses to acknowledge is this: love cannot coexist with possession. A woman who has married her freedom is far more dangerous to the old world than any political revolution. She dismantles the foundation upon which society has built its hierarchy of control. The belief that a woman's value comes from being chosen rather than being awakened. But the mystery is this: the goal is not to reject love, it's to transmute love. When a woman discovers the inner marriage, when she unites with her own soul, something shifts in the relationships she attracts. Her energy no longer calls in men who want to own her light, because she no longer mistakes flattery for devotion or attention for connection. She draws partners who have met their own darkness, who are capable of standing beside a woman who shines without apology. Their union becomes alchemical, a vas hermeticum where both can transform one another through mutual reflection. But these kinds of relationships are rare. They require two people who have walked through the fires of their own unconsciousness. Two people who have died to their illusions. That's why I say, before a woman marries any man, she must marry her solitude. She must learn to sit in the temple of her own silence until she can hear the whisper of her soul. She must face the ghosts of her conditioning, the voices that tell her she's incomplete, that her worth lies in being wanted, that her identity must be anchored in someone else. When those voices finally fade, when she looks into the mirror and sees not a role but a being, then, and only then, can love find her without consuming her. The forbidden truth is that most of what we call romance is nothing more than an unconscious attempt to avoid individuation. It is far easier to build a life with someone else than it is to live in the shifting landscape of your own soul. But the soul doesn't care about what's easy. The soul cares about what's true. And when a woman finally listens to that truth, she becomes luminous with a kind of beauty that no external validation can replicate. The beauty of authenticity, the beauty of presence. She is no longer a bride waiting for someone to choose her. She becomes the eternal bride of the self, the inner union no ceremony can sanctify, but from which all true love flows. When that illusion dissolves, when she finally sees through the architecture of her own conditioning, another movement begins in her psyche. It's subtle at first, like mist lifting off a lake at dawn. It's the realization that the man she loved, or thought she loved, was never fully external at all. What she saw in him was a reflection of her own unlived masculine, the inner principle that brings direction, clarity, and consciousness to her eros. The animus, this inner masculine, has been misunderstood for centuries. To some women, he appears as an inner tyrant, the critical voice that commands and restricts. To others, he shows up as the savior, the perfect imaginary lover who promises redemption. But both are distortions, both are shadows cast by the same archetype. Because the true animus is not a jailer nor a rescuer, he is the bridge, the translator between the unconscious and the conscious, the energy that gives wings to intuition, the inner voice that turns feeling into meaning. But when a woman projects this inner figure onto a man, she gives him a responsibility no human being can carry, to embody her inner divine masculine. And of course, he fails. He must fail. He is human, and in the collapse of that projection, she feels betrayed, because she mistook her own soul for him. That's why the old alchemists wrote of the conjunctio oppositorum, the union of inner opposites, as the highest spiritual work. No outer relationship can succeed until the inner relationship is formed. Until the woman integrates her animus, she lives in a cycle of worship and resentment, idealization, and disappointment. When this realization arrives, it doesn't arrive gently. It cuts with surgical precision. It empties her heart of all the false forms of love she once knew, and in that emptiness, something new begins to breathe. The voice of the inner masculine, once projected outward, begins to speak within her. And this time, it doesn't command. It converses. It doesn't demand obedience. It offers clarity. In this sacred dialogue between Eros and Logos, between soul and spirit, a third reality emerges, the self, the mysterious center that is both masculine and feminine, both known and unknown. I've seen this transformation symbolized in dreams. A woman stands at the edge of a vast sea watching a ship disappear beyond the horizon. On the shore, she finds a glowing compass. She picks it up and suddenly realizes the sea is not outside her. It is her own life, her own depth, her own unconscious. The ship she thought she lost was nothing more than her longing for the masculine principle. The compass symbolizes orientation, the birth of inner direction. She no longer follows desire blindly. She moves with intention. This moment is powerful but also dangerous, because the ego may whisper, "I need no one now. I am complete." But wholeness is not isolation. It's relational. It allows love to flow without fear. The woman who has integrated her animus can love deeply without losing herself. She can walk beside another without walking behind. She becomes both vessel and fire, receptive and radiant, like the moon that reflects sunlight while governing the tides on her own terms. To understand why the unconscious resists this transformation so fiercely, we have to look at the mythic root of marriage itself. Across cultures and throughout time, marriage has symbolized not just the union of two people, but the taming of the wild, the feminine. Instinctual, cyclical, intuitive, lunar has always represented the mysterious, the unpredictable, the untamed. And society, in its desire for order, has always tried to contain that energy inside a fixed set of roles. Wife, mother, caregiver. These roles aren't inherently wrong. They become prisons only when they're the only roles allowed, because the wild feminine cannot breathe in odd cages. Her love is cyclical. Her wisdom is tidal. She creates and destroys, dreams and awakens, retreats and returns. She does not move in straight lines. She moves in spirals. That is why so many women, after entering marriage, feel an invisible suffocation. Outwardly, everything looks stable, a home, a family, a routine, but inwardly the fire begins to dim, the dreams fade, the moon of her unconscious wanes. She starts speaking in borrowed words, living in borrowed time, and somewhere deep inside, a rebellion whispers. This rebellion isn't against the husband, it isn't against the vow, it's against the lie that safety is worth the price of the soul. When the soul rebels, it does so quietly at first. Through small acts of defiance, a sudden urge to paint again after years. A longing to sit alone beneath the stars, a dream of running barefoot in a forest. These are not random whims, they are messages, signals from the inner world demanding attention. If she ignores them, the psyche begins to break down. Depression, resentment, chronic fatigue, emotional numbness, these are symptoms of a soul in captivity. But if she listens, if she follows the thread of longing, something miraculous happens. The energy that was trapped in conformity returns as creativity. What was once a marriage built on duty becomes a union with destiny. She starts writing her own myth. There's an old story. A woman dreams she enters a cathedral made entirely of mirrors. At first, she panics, seeing herself reflected 1,000 times. But then the mirrors begin to shatter one by one, and through every crack, light pours in. When the last mirror breaks, she realizes the light had been inside her all along. That is what happens when projection dissolves. The mirror of marriage breaks, and the self, radiant, uncontained, emerges. But the collective mind fears this kind of light, because a woman who integrates her inner masculine, who no longer projects him onto men, becomes a psychological revolutionary. Not because she hates men, but because she is no longer dependent on them to validate her existence. She becomes her own authority. Her love becomes vast, cosmic even. She may still walk with a man, but that choice comes from fullness, not fear. The old mystics understood this. They called it the hieros gamos, the sacred marriage within. In alchemy, it was the union of the red king and the white queen, the sun and moon. When this inner conjunction occurs, the woman becomes a living philosopher's stone. She becomes psychologically immortal, not in body but in consciousness. She begins to sense meaning in every sorrow, order in every chaos. Her relationship with love deepens. What once felt romantic becomes devotional. What once felt like desire becomes awareness. She stops asking, "Who will love me?" She starts asking, "Through whom will love wish to express itself today?" This shift marks the birth of spiritual eros, love as an act of consciousness rather than compulsion. And yet this awakening can feel isolating. The world cannot understand a woman who loves without clinging, who stays without needing, who is present without possession. People may label her aloof or detached, but they misunderstand. She hasn't withdrawn from intimacy. She has entered a deeper one that cannot be measured by proximity or ownership. Her love becomes spacious. It allows others to be exactly as they are. She no longer clings because she knows that nothing real can be lost. The more she releases, the more life returns to her. That is why I say, a woman should never marry until she has known her solitude as holy, until she has learned the difference between love and dependency. Silence becomes her teacher. Solitude becomes her sanctuary. Only then can union exist without devouring her. As this phase matures, her gaze changes. It becomes calm, grounded, luminous with awareness. She begins to see men not as saviors or threats, but as fellow travelers in the great work of individuation. Her relationships stop being dramas of need and become mirrors of growth. Every encounter, every heartbreak, every joy becomes part of a sacred dialogue between her soul and the world. The unconscious does not oppose consciousness. It loves consciousness. It longs for relationship with it. And the awakened woman becomes the priestess of this relationship, a mediator between visible and invisible, instinct and insight, matter and meaning. Her life becomes a ritual, her words an invocation, her silence a temple. And within that temple, she finally understands she should never marry. Not because love is forbidden, but because she is the marriage. She is the union she once sought in another. When this second veil dissolves, a profound stillness arrives, not a stillness of completion, but of reorientation. Everything that once defined her identity falls away, the name, the roles, the expectations. This is Jung's nigredo, the blackening, the sacred disorientation before rebirth. She enters a wilderness of the soul. She belongs nowhere because she no longer belongs to false stories. She is tempted to go back, to seek comfort in old patterns, but the unconscious is merciless toward regression. The door behind her is closed now. Ahead is only darkness. But this darkness is alive. Dreams become her guides. She dreams of corridors, of searching for a lost child, of carrying a lamp that never goes out. The child is her creative soul, the lamp is her awareness, and when she finally kneels and holds the darkness itself, the child returns because it was never lost, it was hidden in the shadow. The shadow is not evil, it is simply the unlived life. Everything she suppressed, her intellect, her passion, her anger, her sensuality, her madness now rises, demanding recognition. To embrace the shadow is to reclaim her wholeness. But this reclamation feels like chaos. The psyche erupts with contradictions. She asks, "Who am I if not the wife, the mother, the good woman?" And the soul answers, "You are the one who contains all of these and more. As she surrenders to this fire, her eros transforms from outward longing into inner flame. Desire loses its object and becomes prayer. Loneliness becomes purification. People may call her too much, too intense, too independent. But what they cannot articulate is her autonomy, the scent of a soul no longer for sale. In this solitude, she meets her greatest adversary, the inner patriarch, the internalized voice of centuries telling her she is only worth what she can give. That freedom is selfish, that independence is loneliness, that without a man she is incomplete. This voice is cunning. It can even disguise itself as spirituality, urging her to surrender, obey, serve. But she begins to see the truth. This is not the divine masculine. This is the ghost of the collective, and she must slay it, not through anger, but through awareness. The alchemists called this moment the death of the king. The false ruler dies, and the vessel of the feminine becomes the tomb from which a new light emerges. The albedo, the whitening. She begins to see beauty in solitude, meaning in pain, purpose in her past. Her grief becomes her teacher, every tear a crystal, every loss an instruction. Women who emerge from this darkness radiate an authority they never asked for. Their beauty changes, it no longer seduces, it magnetizes. Their eyes no longer seek validation, they reveal presence. The sacred feminine and integrated masculine dance within them like flame and air. They have become the living conjunctio. But transformation is only complete when it enters the world. She must embody what she has become. She must return, not as a dependent bride, but as a creator. She must love again, but from the soul outward, not from the wound inward. This return is challenging. Many cannot meet her gaze now. Men may desire her light, but fear its source. She may be tempted to dim herself just to belong, but the soul forbids regression. Any false love feels like poison. Any compromise feels like suffocation. Only relationships rooted in mutual awareness will survive. The rest will dissolve like mist. To live as a free woman in an unfree world is one of the deepest initiations. It demands vigilance, compassion, and boundaries. But it also makes her an archetype, an embodiment of the awakened feminine in history. Her life becomes a symbol for others, a living doorway into possibility. When I say a woman should never get married, I am speaking of consciousness, not law. She should never surrender herself to an outer structure before discovering the inner structure of her being. Marriage may come later, but it will never again be an escape from herself. Whether she walks alone or with another, she walks with the eternal. She understands that pain is not punishment. It is participation in the unfolding of the self. Her awakening is not an achievement. It is a homecoming. And one day, in a dream, she stands at an altar once more. But there is no groom, no priest, no audience, only a pool of still water. She kneels and sees her reflection, not as she was, but as she has become, luminous, serene, whole. She dips her hand in the water. The ripples form symbols, the serpent, the moon, the flame, her own mysteries reflected back. She rises and walks away. The altar dissolves. The old temple vanishes. She steps into sunlight. The marriage is complete, not with another, but within herself. When a woman weds her own soul, the world trembles because she no longer serves unconscious scripts. She becomes a living myth. Her love does not conform. Her love reveals. And through her revelation, the collective begins to remember that the feminine was never meant to be possessed, only known. This is the forbidden truth. Not that a woman should live without love, but that she should love as consciousness loves. Freely, deeply, without fear. For when she becomes this love, the universe becomes her partner. And in that union, silent, radiant, infinite, she is finally home.